Cool. Well, Brad, thanks for being able to spend a bit of time with me. I've been looking forward to interviewing you because I think you've got a lot to offer. Yeah, before we get into specifically what I want to talk about today, I guess for the good of the watchers or the hearers, let me just tell them what the purpose of the interview is. So Brad is a member of our EXP group. He's one of the top producing agents in the country. And he had a little bit of a lull earlier in the year. Yeah, so we gathered a couple of our other top agents together on a Google meeting. And Brad laid out his business, his strategies, etc. And he got some incredible feedback from the other agents. And I love doing that sort of thing within my group, getting the top agents together to support and learn from one another. And Brad went and implemented a whole bunch of that advice that he got and got phenomenal results. And I think the advice that you got, Brad, is going to be hugely valuable to the agent population of South Africa and even beyond that. So I thought, let's do an interview where we actually unpack some of that advice you got, what you did to implement it and what the results were. But before we get there, just introduce yourself for the sake of everyone who's watching. Who is Brad Neille? Tell us just a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Steve. Well, my name is Brad Neille. I've been an estate agent for 17 years. I'm a dad, got 3 beautiful girls. I'm married to my wife, Joanne. We live in Parkview in Joburg. And I've been blessed to be on this real estate journey for 17 years. It really has been an adventure. It's my passion. It's what I really love doing. And I started out as an agent at Pam Golding Properties back in 2006. Cut my teeth in the Sandton areas, and I was at Pam Golding for about 10 years. Then went to head up a branch of Tyson Properties, and was with Tyson for just over 4 years before I decided to join EXP. And it's been a wonderful adventure, really amazing, exciting journey.
Well, Brad, one of the things I appreciate most about you is that, I've met tens of thousands of agents through the years, and I think it's fair to say that a lot of estate agents don't really treat their business like a business. Whereas you exude professionalism. You take what you do very seriously.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if you can capture it in kind of like a philosophy of business, but I'd love to hear you just comment on that. Like, how do you approach and think about life as an estate agent?
Well, having 3 kids is a huge motivator. So when you got mouths to feed, you don't have the luxury of sitting on your bum doing nothing. You got to put bread on the table. So yes, I do treat my business very seriously because it's how I generate an income, and it's how I feed my family, really, at the end of the day. It's I suppose I believe that if you're going to make a success of something, you really have to pour yourself into it, give it your all, and that's what I try and do every day, is to give it all, give it my all, and that's just how I believe in living my life, I suppose.
Yeah, and I guess one of the ways that I saw that manifest was when you had that slump. You reached out to me. It's actually a bit of a funny story how the meeting came about, because I was a little bit naughty. In that Brad sent me a message just saying he was very frustrated. One of his competitors kept on picking up listings that he had for a couple of months, and as soon as he'd got the price down to where it needed to be, then the competitor came and kind of stole it from him, and he was very frustrated, sent me a message. So I just said to him, well, sponsor him. Now, if you don't know the EXP model, we as agents, we can introduce other agents into EXP and build our own teams. So I basically said to Brad, well, just get him on your team. And it was a bit of a flippant response. And Brad, he sent me a message just saying, I don't appreciate that. Don't appreciate that.
I had a wobbly.
Yeah, a little wobbly. I'm having a bit of a crisis in my business right now, and I'm reaching out for help, and I don't sort of appreciate such an unthought out response. And he was absolutely right. So then I sat down. I said, okay, Brad is right. Let me see what I can do to help him here. And that's when I reached out to a bunch of our other successful agents and put that meeting together. And boy, I mean, it just turned out so well. And yeah, so the point I wanted to make was that watching Brad, who, I mean, historically, this is one of the top agents in Johannesburg, if not in South Africa. Watch him take that that opportunity seriously. Watching him quite candidly open up to this group of agents his struggles, but also come with thoughts on what strategies he has tried to correct the issues, where the major stumbling blocks are, what he thinks he might be able to do in the future. He didn't just pitch up on the meeting like so many people do, unprepared. He'd really put a lot of effort into it. And the way you were willing to humble yourself, lay out your struggles, take advice from your peers, man, I was so impressed by that, Brad. So many people either don't take their business seriously enough to do that, or they're not humble enough to do that, or they don't trust that other people have got wisdom that they can learn from. So yeah, I commend you for that, Brad. I've really learned a lot from how you approach your business.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, in my past life, if I had troubles like that, I'd go to my manager and I'd cry on my manager's shoulder, and the manager would tell me what to do. But here at EXP, we don't have a manager. We don't have management as such. So it was quite an amazing experience to get input from fellow agents. That to me was a game changer. I've never really had that opportunity before. So just had to have a meeting where I could chat to like-minded agents who are sort of peer level, and get input from them on my business was an amazing opportunity.
Yeah. One of the things, because you're a member of the groups, but one of the things that I've focused on doing in my EXP group is getting the most successful people together in what we call masterminds. And we just came off our mastermind this morning. So we got a mastermind for our capping agents. Those are our highest producing agents. And then we've got a mastermind for our successful agent attraction agents who are building big teams. And in both of those meetings, there's no one leader of the meeting. We have a format that we go through, and a different person every 2 weeks gets to do their check-in. And just the space in business and in life to be able to lay your issues out in front of others. There is this wisdom in the multitude of counselors. And it's one of the things I love about leading this EXP group is that we can get people into these collaborative kind of mastermind groups where they learn from one another.
Just being in that vulnerable sort of situation, I think we as estate agents tend to be quite proud and quite sort of independent-minded, but just having that vulnerability to open up, I think certainly helped me.
Yeah, you're right. Real estate seems to suffer from this this curse where the image that you portray in many agents' minds seems to be very important. How they are perceived.
Perceived, absolutely.
Yeah, and that stops us from being transparent with each other.
Absolutely, or real. I think we try to be somebody we're not. Sometimes, and it's important to just be real, be yourself, and when you're having difficulty, to be open and honest about it, rather than try and pretend that it's not happening.
So, Brad, let's unpack a little bit of that story. So you were struggling, just kind of tell us, where were you at?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I joined DXP in January this year, January 2022, and had a number of listings which I brought on board straight away. So from a listing and stock point of view, I was doing great, but it took me a while to put deals on the board. I think I did my first deal in May, so it took me about 4 or 5 months to start doing deals, and had a great run in May. Put 5 deals on the board in that month, and then hit a slump. Just everything went dead. I had a number of listings which I've been marketing for that long, for probably about 6 months, and just was battling to get interest on them, get offers on them, and then one mandate in particular, which happened to be my pastor, my minister at church. It was his home. He'd given me a mandate to market his home because he was emigrating to the US, and really battling to get his place sold. And I had a personal relationship with him because he was my minister. And maybe for that reason it was an issue, but it was difficult for me to kind of give him bad news about the sale of his home. And I was trying to tell him that we needed to bring the price down and what have you. Anyway, eventually mandate came to an end. He said, Brad, I've got to make a call. My visa's come through. I need to leave. I've got to get this house sold. I've given the mandate to your competitor. And I was gutted. I was just gutted because this guy, I have a personal bit of a history with, but he has been gunning for me a little bit in terms of my stock and that, and just losing that mandate was a real low point for me. So that's when I messaged you, Steve, and I said, I need some help here. This is just terrible. And I will be honest, I didn't handle it handle the response too well. But yeah, just following that, setting up the meeting, it really just turned things around, and things have been flying ever since.
Okay, so let's dig into that meeting itself. You laid out the issues and some of your thoughts around strategy. And what did you hear that day? Because for the sake of everyone that's watching as well, we had a WhatsApp group that we'd formed for this little group that we put together. We only met once, but we had the WhatsApp group where there was some communication. And after the meeting, you actually gave us a taxonomy, if you could call it that, like an itemized list of every bit of advice you'd been given, and you began to give us feedback on each of those points on what you'd actually actioned. And I mean, the story was fantastic. So break down some of that advice for us.
Sure. Well, I mean, there was a lot of information that came out of that meeting, and so I kind of took as much of it away as I could. I was making copious notes as we met. And then, following those sort of points, I put together a strategy which I then implemented. So there were a number of really powerful points which came out of that meeting. Things like, I remember Renee Becker saying that changing brands is like starting from scratch, and that really got me. That kind of calmed me down a little bit. I think, I was panicking that things weren't going the way I wanted them to, and it just made me stop and think. Give yourself a break. You've made this massive change in your career. And yes, it is like starting from scratch, and it's going to take time to get things up and running again. So that was really good advice. Don't expect miracles overnight. Success will take time. Mindset, that positive mindset is so imperative, and it's easy to get into a slump when things aren't going well. Focus on building your own brand. Don't compare yourself to others. I think I was comparing myself to my competitors and seeing what they were doing instead of focusing on what was positive in my own business. And I think that was quite powerful as well. Avoid taking on overpriced stock. I think that was a big point that came out of that meeting, was that I was sitting with a lot of stock that was just way overpriced. And I was making that mistake just to have the exposure and have the board up and have something to sell. I was taking on stock at the wrong price, which since then I've obviously tried to minimize or to reduce the amount of overpriced stock that I take on. Cold calling, it's something that we've been chatting about with Fred Wilson, doing those, not necessarily cold calling, but speaking to people every day. I think that's been an important thing, which I've tried to get back into doing. As an experienced agent, I've kind of let that slip a bit, having that discipline of calling and speaking to buyers or sellers every day. So that was a very valid point. Using every avenue to market listings, not just portals. So social media, Facebook groups, WhatsApp, Propcom, all of those have been quite powerful going forward. And I think we kind of rely a lot on the portals, and there's so much more, so many more tools available to us these days, which we need to implement. Involving competitor agents in your listings, that was something that I really have never done before.
Yeah, that was a big one in what happened, isn't it?
Absolutely, it was a big point for me because in the sort of culture that I've come from, competitor agents were competitors. You didn't speak to them, you didn't engage with them. You kind of growled at each other across the road when you were putting your boards up on a Sunday, and that was about it. So this concept of involving other agents in your listings was a good one, and the thought process there was to invite them to view your listings, particularly those ones that you're having that difficulty selling, and and then to bring their buyers, and to split the commission. I think the point was made, rather have 50% of the commission than nothing. And I think in the case of my minister's house, if I'd done that up front with my competitor agents, I probably would have sold it before the mandate had ended, and I would have at least had 50% of the commission in my pocket instead of a fat zero and a kick up the butt. So that was a really powerful point which I took away from that meeting. Sending sellers a video about pricing the home correctly. That was also, I think, a point that you made, Steve. Good photos. I remember a listener made that point. I think she was a bit critical of some of my photographs, but using good photographs and making sure the photographs are presented in the right order, rather than sort of presenting them in the order that you would logically expect to see them in the house. Rather pick the 5 best photographs, because those are probably the only ones that a buyer is going to look at. The 5 most important rooms in the house. Make those the first 5 photographs that the buyer is going to look at. And then if marketing isn't working properly, relaunch the property as a completely new listing. That was also a really good idea, just to take it off, completely relaunch it, new photographs, new copy. And something I have done in the past, but perhaps had forgotten about. So those were the main points which I took away from that meeting. And then following those points, I then put together a strategy and I said to you guys, if this doesn't work, I'm out. If I can't make this happen, my business is dead, and I need to make another plan. And so I put together a little strategy which I then asked for you guys' input on, and step by step implemented it. So I can share that strategy now if you'd like me to.
Yeah. Let's go through that, because we have a lot of content available to us as estate agents. You can climb onto YouTube and you can watch endless videos, and if you're an EXP member, you've got the world's worth of training available to you. Exactly. But it's the implementation of good strategy that works, that makes the difference. Implementation. So that to me is actually the most important discussion here, is now, how did you go about actually implementing? What did you do first, and how did it unfold?
Perfect. So as you say, I mean, implementation was everything. And I think setting it out in point form like that, and making myself accountable to the group for each step, really sort of forced me to do it. It wasn't just talk. It was, I had to get these things done. So it really helped from that point of view, just to be accountable to somebody, Yeah,
because they'd all given up of their time to spend an hour with you. Why would they do that? Well, because we have a wonderful collaborative culture in our business, but you do feel like you kind of owe it to them now to make good on the time that they invested in you.
Absolutely, particularly because I wasn't paying them for their time. I felt like I owed it to them to make it happen. So there were a couple of mandates in particular that I was battling with at that stage, and I'd had them on the market for again a number of months. I brought prices down already. And the market in Joburg has been tough this year. Interest rates going up, and lots of sellers leaving for either overseas or for the coast somewhere. So the market in Joburg has been difficult. So despite dropping prices, I wasn't getting interest on these listings at all. So first point of my strategy was to meet with my sellers and to communicate with them. I think that was key, was to communicate that this is where we're at. This is I'm giving it my all. I really am putting everything into getting their home sold, and to tell them that this was the strategy that I was going to implement to try and achieve a result for them. So that was the first thing, was communicate with the seller. Second thing was to ask the seller whether they'd allow me to host an open hour at their home to invite other agents, competitor agents, to view their home. So I got the sellers on board with that idea, both sellers in that case, and we set up one hour. I think it was 12 o'clock on the same day. We had both houses on show. Renee, my assistant, sat at the one house. I sat at the other house, and I had a list of about 5 or 6 agents who are active in my area, and sent them all. I first called them, told them this was my idea, and then sent them an email with a link to the property and invited them to the show there. And without fail, their response was very positive. They all said, fantastic idea. Why haven't we thought of this? We should be doing more of this. We'd love to come. So I was very surprised by the other agents' response. And the open hour was extremely productive. It was great meeting the other agents. And so many of them said, geez, we've seen your name, but we've never met face to face before. I mean, it's crazy. So many of us have been operating in the area for years, and we never actually interact with each other. So to get a whole bunch of competitor agents in the room at the same time was quite an interesting experience, I have to say. And then what I asked the agents to do when I phoned them was to firstly view the property, secondly to give me their honest opinion of the value of the property. So if we had to sell the house today or in the short time frame, what is a realistic value? And I asked them to put it in writing, so to give me a written valuation. And then thirdly, I invited them to introduce their buyers. So if they had somebody in mind that they felt would be appropriate to introduce the home to, I said I'd be happy to have their buyer come through the house, and I'd be happy to split the commission with them in the event that their buyer purchased the home. So that was my brief to the agent. And all 5 or 6 agents came through, and they all gave me their written valuations. Then I went back to my sellers and I presented those valuations to the sellers, and so they could see this was the honest opinion of the value. In the case of the one listing, the valuations weren't significantly below our listing price at that stage. In the case of the second property, the valuations were way below. So in the case of that property, it was a lot easier to get the seller to bring their price down. We were asking 3.25 million at the time, and the valuations all came at 2.5 to 2.7 million. So I managed to get the seller to agree to drop the price below 3 million. So we were able to adjust the price there. The first listing, we were asking 3.8, if I remember correctly. Valuations were kind of 3.5 to 3.7. So we were within range. But I did give the seller those valuations, and she could see that we were probably still slightly high compared to what the market was prepared to pay. And it was great because it wasn't me being the bad guy, the bad cop. It was the other agents that were giving, and they had no sort of vested interest in necessarily in giving that valuation. It was
just quite a powerful dynamic, that actually.
Absolutely, yeah. Because at so much of the time, I'm the bad guy, and the seller gets cross with me. When I'm constantly telling them they've got to bring their price down. So that was really powerful, just doing that agent's open eye. Then the next step in the strategy was to relaunch the listing. So we took new photographs of both properties. We took completely different angles. We rewrote the ad copies. We completely redid the listing, and then we relaunched both listings at the adjusted prices. They looked like and felt like totally new homes. So fresh listings that were just sent out to our database again, sent out to the Property 24 database again. Then the fourth step in the process was to do a Propcom WhatsApp campaign. So I loaded all my buyers. I had around about 600 buyer wish lists on Propcom in that price range, and I did a WhatsApp campaign inviting my buyers to the upcoming show day. So what we did then.
For the sake of people who don't know, Propcom is a CRM system. We use it within our EXP group around South Africa. And one of the features it has is this bulk WhatsApp facility, which is just fantastic. So you can load a preloaded message. It'll mail merge the person's first name into the WhatsApp. And then it's just a matter of click, 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 and you send off 600 WhatsApps. Very, very powerful communication tool. Absolutely, yeah, it's really, really powerful. And I was getting good responses to those little Propcom campaigns. And then what we do is I asked the sellers to then allow me to host another show day. In the case of my first listing, the seller was very averse to show days. But given that we put this whole strategy in place, she agreed to let us do one more show day. And so again, we hosted a Sunday open house. And ahead of that show day, I then had a strategy as follows. Firstly, we featured the listing on Property 24, so paid featured ad. It appears at the top of the search results on Property 24, so it kind of made the property top of mind for buyers again. Secondly, I did a flow campaign on each listing. So that's paid social media advertising on Facebook and Instagram. So I put a little artwork together and sent that out on Flow.
So again, just elevating the visibility of the listing on social media. The next thing was a pamphlet drop. So we did what we call 5-5-10 drops, where we printed, I think, 20 or 30 flyers and dropped them off 5 neighbors to the left, 5 neighbors to the right, 10 neighbors across the road. In reality, it was probably more than that, but we invited the neighbors to the show day as well. And the purpose behind that strategy was to firstly, increase activity at the show days, and secondly, to encourage owners to invite their friends and family who might be looking to buy. And there were a number of residents who came to the show days.
And of course, you get to meet more property in the area.
Absolutely.
That you can add to your database and start keeping in touch with them too. Yeah,
100%. So that's something that I often do, particularly with a new listing, is invite the neighbors to view the house, because often they'll have friends or family, or if they're coming to the show, they may be thinking themselves of selling their home in the future. So it's great to interact with them at that point. And it didn't produce a result, I would go back to the sellers and ask them to extend my mandate. So this all happened within a couple of weeks of the end of my mandate. And so, again, this was it. If I didn't make it happen, I don't know what I was going to do. So the last step in the strategy was going to be to ask the seller to extend the mandate. So yeah, step by step, I implemented that. And the end result was that I sold both properties. In the case of the lower priced listing, we got an offer not from the show day, funny enough, but a buyer, because of the price reduction. I had a buyer who came through viewing during the week, and they offered 2.5 million. So spot right bang in the middle of where the agents had valued it. And we eventually, the seller counted at 2.7 million, and we sold it there. The buyer accepted the counter offer. In fact, I had a second offer as well on that property at 2.6, but it was subject to the sale of the buyer's house. So they ended up selling it to the cleaner of the 2 offers. So that was an amazing result. And it happens to be my immediate neighbor. So we just had them over for dinner last night, and they said thank you so much for achieving the result for us, and they're so excited to be moving to their new home. So really, it was an amazingly positive outcome. Best part of it is that I've got a sold board up right outside my house, my neighbor's property, and I've got cars driving past all the time. I've had so many people commenting on that particular sold board. So from a visibility point of view, it was just fantastic. In the case of the second house, I took an offer from a buyer at the show day, subject to the sale of their home. They live in a neighboring suburb in Greenside. So they gave me their home to sell as well, and I've since sold that property as well. So amazing result, and just the momentum that those two deals have generated have turned into probably close to 10 more deals.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Since then, and this was about, when was it? When did we meet? It was probably about August or September.
Yeah,
I remember.
it was about
so in the last
4 months.
2 or 3 months, I put a number of other deals on the board, and it's just, that momentum is gaining and gaining. My stock levels have grown, so it's just like things are exploding from here.
How has that worked? Why has that happened?
I guess it's just firstly my energy and my mindset is different. I think I was in a very negative frame of mind, and so just doing deals and putting deals on the board has naturally helped me feel more positive about life. Secondly, having the sold boards app and the boards app just improves my credibility with clients. I think that I was battling a little bit with that, change of brand, new sort of business, and I was battling to get those deals done, was perhaps making people question whether I'd made the right move. So I think having the sold boards app also has given clients confidence to entrust me with the sale of their homes.
So you've mentioned mindset a few times, and I've got to admit, I was surprised by how important that piece of advice was that came from Renee Becker on that meeting. because there was so much other practical stuff like, doing the mini listings with other agents in the area, getting a pricing strategy going. It's all kind of very practical.
Yes.
And I thought to myself, when Renee was talking about mindset and positivity and believe in yourself, Brad, you're an amazing agent. I remember her telling you, Brad, you are an incredible agent. You just need to remind yourself of that. Like, to me, it's amazing that actually was one of the factors that turned things around. So, I mean, is mindset that important in real estate?
To me, that was the most important thing that I learned, took away from that meeting. And I thank Renee for that, because it really forced me to stop and think and just say, yeah, actually, give yourself some credit. You have had good success in your career, and you are a good agent, and it just sort of jolted me out of that negative frame of mind. So, and I think mindset is critical, man. Those Monday meetings that we have with Yaku are just wonderful from that point of view. Just to get your frame of mind right, I think, because everything else filters down from there. If your thinking is negative, your business cannot flourish.
Yeah. One of my concerns is that there are so many agents out there who feel lonely. Real estate can be a very lonely industry, and you can be part of a big franchise, as you've been a member of a number of franchises, and yet you can feel all alone in the office and almost feel like it's all just competitors surrounding you in those offices. My fear is that a lot of people don't have anybody really that they could reach out to, and so I don't know what the answer to that is, but certainly it is true that you have to surround yourself with positive people. Your friendships are important. Your relationships with colleagues is important. And I would say that the culture of the business that you're in is important. It's one of the things that I know both you and I love most about EXP, is that it is such a positive, collaborative, supportive culture. And that really helps with mindset and happiness where you're at.
Most definitely. I mean, I think we can't underestimate that. EXP, as much as it is a cloud-based business, it's so important to get in touch with colleagues, whether virtually or in person from time to time. And on that note, we've got a little small group meeting which we have once a month, and I would encourage other agents to participate in those. So in our case, we meet on the third Wednesday of every month at Bryanston Country Club. And we've got a group of about 20 agents who are attending those. And I make a point of being at every single one of those, because not only am I gaining sort of advice and help from fellow agents, but I'm also able to give back to them. So I think it's important, critically important to have that personal time with colleagues. And so that's the wonderful thing about EXP, is that we have the opportunity to do that as well. Yeah. The amazing thing is that so many of my clients say, wow, congratulations, we see you've gone out on your own. Well done. And I have to kind of bite my tongue and say, actually, I haven't gone out on my own. I've joined the world's fastest growing brokerage, and potentially one of the biggest brokerages in the world, and soon to be the biggest brokerage in South Africa. But the perception is that I've gone out on my own and started my own business, which is kind of fun.
It's such a powerful, concept that you can build a brand that so strongly you own, and you are the center of your brand. I love your corporate identity, by the way.
Thanks.
And yet you're not an NQF level 5 principal. You don't have to have registered a company with a PPRA. It's just a marketing face that you wear. And yet you get to really build your own brand on the world's best real estate platform, which is what EXP provides us with.
That's an amazing opportunity. I don't know any other business that offers that.
So the mini listing side of things, the kind of agent hours, has that persisted? Have any of those agents reciprocated that?
So interestingly, as a result of those shows, I have done a couple more of them since then. But the amazing thing is that it's helped me to build relationships with agents. It's so refreshing to actually chat to agents on a one-to-one basis, and instead of sort of glaring at each other as though we're enemies. I've had the opportunity to chat to so many of them about EXP, which has been an amazing opportunity. And so many of them have asked me, what's this EXP thing, and how come you're involving other agents? You're not used to working like that. So it's kind of changing the culture of the industry in the area, which is amazing.
Yeah, you put your finger on something that is really quite staggering. EXP does change the culture of real estate when it enters a country. And I think this is one of the reasons for that, is that it suddenly incentivizes agents to be open to conversations with other agents. It stimulates relationships within the agent community of the country. And that's certainly what we've seen. I mean, we've had like Colin Berger, for example, who's another top agent in Joburg, who's now come across to EXP and joined your team. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, super exciting. And he's one, one of many. I think there's numerous agents who I've been chatting to, following those meetings. And as I said, it's been amazing to actually engage with other agents and actually build relationships with them instead of treating them like enemies.
Yeah.
So yeah, really amazing.
Yeah, it's funny, if you understand the US model of real estate, they have buyers agents and sellers agents. Very rarely will an agent sell their own listing. They're all members of the MLS, and you have to load the property onto the MLS within 48 hours or whatever the rules are. And then all the agents have got access to it. So you have agents who actually take buyer mandates with buyers, sign sole mandates to find you a house. And then there's obviously listing agents on the other side. South Africa, we are completely on the other end of the spectrum. Most agents in South Africa will try to sell their own stock and will not want to share it with other agents. Now, I can understand that because you earn double the commission, and in a good market, man, you put your property up on P24 and you'll sell it within a couple of weeks and you'll make full commission. So it's kind of difficult to argue against selling your own stock. But I have the sense that if we could shift towards a far more collaborative culture within property and real estate, yes, you'd lose percentages on your own listings that you're selling, but wouldn't that come back to you because you'd now have access to other people's stock?
Absolutely.
And doesn't that create a real estate industry that's just more efficient and better for the clients?
Absolutely. At the end of the day, it's doing the seller a disservice if we're not involving other agents, I believe. And particularly in a tough market like we're in now, I think we need to change the way we're working. And I think the EXP philosophy and culture is perfectly suited to that. So it's been a total mind shift for me from that point of view to involve other agents, and I think surprisingly other agents are receptive to it. So many of them have said, "Geez, why are we not doing more of this? We need to be working together, and we can't possibly have every single buyer out there on our books." Whereas if we collaborate with other agents, that just widens the net, and ultimately it's better. It produces a better result for the client, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, Brad, let's finish off just talking a little bit about EXP specifically, your move to EXP, how it's been. We've spoken a lot today about the cultural benefits of EXP, the collaboration, the relationships, and that is a huge part of the benefit. It's a wonderful company to work for, but there are other benefits. There's other cash flow streams, etc. So just tell us a little bit about your experience of coming out of the traditional franchise model into EXP. What's it been like?
Well, first of all, starting off on a 71-29 split was groundbreaking for me. It's nice having that extra cash in the pocket, and having just capped now, I'm super excited about being on 96% com. That certainly I've never experienced before. So the split in itself has been amazing.
So I'm going to actually push the pause button there because that's an important discussion. You've just capped with the EXP, and congratulations for that, Brad.
Thank you.
But you said in a meeting that I was in with you a couple of days ago that with your calendar year, I think starts again at the 1st of February, if I remember correctly, and you've already got deals in the pipeline, so that it looks like you'll cap within in your next year?
Yeah, so I joined in January this year. My anniversary date is February, so 1st of February every year, my cap resets. As I said, it took me about 4 or 5 months to do deals. The deals that I did in May started registering in August. So I've capped essentially from August, September, October. It's taking me about three and a half months of registered sales to cap. Since then, the deals that I've done, which are now in the pipeline, looking to be transferred early next year, a number of them will register after my anniversary date of the 1st of February. I've got about 6 which will register between February and March next year. So I'm expecting to cap within 2 months next year. So by the end of March, I should have capped, and so then I should be on 96% for the rest of that year until February the following year.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
incredible.
phenomenal. Yeah, I mean, where do you get that? Where do you get to build your own brand, have your own business? Monthly expenses are 800 Rand a month, and you're on 96% commission for 10 months of the year.
Absolutely, it's wonderful.
Yeah,
absolutely incredible.
So, sorry, back to the move to EXP and your experience of it.
Yeah, so as I say, from a cap and a commission split point of view, it's been a no-brainer for me. I don't really understand why anybody wouldn't want to come to EXP when you can get 96% of your comp. And then, I've started earning some revenue share. I'm growing my team, and it hasn't been as active a focus as my sales side, which has always been what I've been good at and focused on. But one of my goals is to build a revenue share team over time. And so I've currently got 5 agents in my revenue share group, and some slowly starting to see some revenue share come in from those agents, which is awesome. So it's interesting to see the revenue share working as well. And then the other amazing thing is equity. The equity awards have also started to bear fruit. Check my share holding the other day. Got quite a nice surprise. And I've got nearly 40,000 Rands worth of shares in my account, which is just mind blowing. And that's also only after 3 months worth of transfers. So that over time will also become a significant asset, which is very exciting.
Yeah. I mean, just what you've described there, even if you've got 5 if you sponsor 5 agents like a Colin Berger, each capping agents, you will make, just with 5 in your team, an extra 100,000 Rand a year. How would you like to receive a check for 100,000 Rand, for a holiday? It's just phenomenal, that extra revenue stream on other people's efforts. And then the stock awards are also tremendously exciting. As you say, you're going to keep building up stock because on all of our transactions, we get to put 5% of our commissions into the stock of the company. They listed on the Nasdaq Stock Exchange, so we can buy stock at a 10% discount. And I mean, if you just keep doing that over the next 5 years, and the share price does what we think it's going to do, that also could be worth millions of Rands in sort of 5 or 10 years' time. So,
and it was a major factor in my deciding to make the move to EXP. When I looked back at my career over the last 16, 17 years, I've got zip to show for it. I was earning good com, but what I was earning was going out the expense column, and I was not able to put much, or if anything, away. And I didn't own any piece of the business that I was working for. So, when I looked at the com that I paid my previous company last year, most of which was going to pay for an office and staff and expenses, which in my opinion were unnecessary. I mean, the office has sat empty for most of the last 2 or 3 years. It just didn't make sense to be paying that split to the company when I could be earning shares in the company and ultimately becoming an owner in the business that I work for, which to me just makes total sense.
Yeah. Well, awesome, Brad. I know we're going to be seeing you in a couple of days' time in Cape Town. Look forward to having you in person. Yeah, it's going to be a great event. And thank you for spending the time with me today. Very much appreciate being in business with you, Brad. And,
my pleasure, Steve.
Yeah.
And thanks again. It's all your fault. Thanks again for introducing me to the business. It's been an amazing journey, and I'm looking forward to growing with you in the years to come.
Awesome, Brad. Thanks, man.